Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. For the second time in the history of the franchise, the Philadelphia Phillies have an All-Star Game MVP.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me for some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic doing sports talk radio here in Philadelphia for over 5 years. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 4 seasons, and this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure you're rating and reviewing. If you're listening to us in podcast form, you can get Locked On Phillies wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button on the Locked On Phillies YouTube channel. It's free and easy. It'll get you notifications when new episodes are posted. That way you never miss any of our Philadelphia Phillies content, even during the All-Star break. Appreciate that very much, everyone who's done that. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Check out our friends over at Game Time. Sorry about the delay in episodes. So I actually had my computer getting worked on by the Geek Squad over at Best Buy. Just had a little bit of an issue with storage and stuff like that. So got it all worked out. Luckily, it happened during the All-Star break when there weren't really major things to react to, or at least like the team wasn't playing games. But I'm going to have a bunch of episodes for you between now and when the Phillies get back in action on Friday and through the weekend as well, reacting to the series with the Angels. But we got to talk about Kyle Schwarber winning All-Star Game MVP, the swing-off champion of the National League. We will talk about that. We're also going to get into where really the team is at, just overall, because we're going to get into some evaluations in other episodes. But where overall are the Phillies at the break? Like, what is this team right now? And then the MLB draft happened, and Gage Wood of Arkansas, who people might know from his no-hitter in the College World Series, was drafted by the Phillies. And I got to talk to the fan base because everybody needs to take a deep breath on Gage Wood. But let's start with Kyle Schwarber. Nobody's taking a deep breath on Kyle Schwarber. He was awesome last night in the All-Star Game swing-off. I'll tell you what honestly happened for me, because I get up at 4 a.m. every morning to go do morning sports talk radio. So I don't really get a chance. If it's not a Phillies game, it's not something where it's just like Kyle Schwarber's the Phil's only All-Star. So I was just kind of like, I watched the first couple innings. I went to bed. And then I woke up at like 3 a.m. I don't know, just woke up for some people, it's the middle of the night. For me, it's like an hour till I have to be up. And I checked my phone. I got all these notifications. I see like Kyle Schwarber in some home run derby type thing, winning it for the National League and being All-Star Game MVP. And then I fell back asleep. And I woke back up later and I was like, wow, I dreamed that. Like, clearly that didn't happen. That was a wild dream. And I rechecked and I was like, oh, shoot. Kyle Schwarber did win All-Star Game MVP in a swing-off. So if you didn't see it, and I imagine most of you have seen it by this point, but like they have this home run derby style matchup, 3v3, where you get 3 swings to try and hit home runs, and whatever team their players combine for the most home runs wins. This was because the game was tied 6 apiece after the 9th inning. The NL actually gave up 6 in the final 3 innings to even the game from being up 6-0. So they should have just won it anyway. But it was great to see Kyle Schwarber. Like, you could not pick a better moment for Kyle Schwarber to be part of a team than a sudden death home run competition. He's the perfect guy for that. It makes you wonder how a couple years ago when he was in the home run derby and matched up against ancient Albert Pujols, that he did not beat Albert Pujols. Almost like there might have been some agreement there, or there might have been some lack of effort there to give Albert Pujols the opportunity to enjoy his last All-Star experience. So that further confirms the theory that Kyle Schwarber threw the derby a couple years back. But whatever, who cares? I mean, it is what it is. You're not losing your mind over him throwing the home run derby unless you had money on it. But anyway, last night he was awesome. It was great to see him win All-Star Game MVP. It's crazy that he's only the second Philly to ever do it. Johnny Callison, back in 1964, was the only other Philadelphia Philly to win All-Star Game MVP. Schwarber, the first DH to win All-Star Game MVP. He's also the first non-pitcher to win All-Star Game MVP without a hit in the game. That's why I just love this swing off, because it throws a complete chaotic monkey wrench into exactly what's going on with the All-Star game. What in the world do you even do after that point? You got to give the guy that helps you win the swing off the All-Star Game MVP trophy. Now, I saw people saying, oh, Phillies have to re-sign Kyle Schwarber now. He's going to cost even more money. Like, he's having a great year. I get it. Now, I don't know that the All-Star Game MVP leads to more payment in the offseason. I think people already knew Kyle Schwarber, if he sees batting practice, can hit home runs. So I don't think that's anything new. And the Phillies have to re-sign him. Maybe that's true. I'll stay where I was previously on Kyle Schwarber. My position on this is probably not going to move. The only thing that changes my position on the future of Kyle Schwarber with the Philadelphia Phillies is the result of this season for the team, right? If the team falls apart and they go out in the divisional series or even in the wild card round, right? Well, then, I don't know. You might just have to let him walk, JT walk, Ranger walk, trade Castellanos, burn everything down, rebuild it all up from the ashes as quickly as you can in a window where maybe Harper and Turner are still relevant, right? So things can change. And if they win the World Series, it might be, yeah, screw it. Pay him whatever he wants. Bring him back. Run it back. Do it again. Do everything you can to do it again because you just won one. Let's go win two, right? So how the season ends is going to be a huge part of this. But I want Kyle Schwarber back at a price. You have too much that you need to try and take care of outside of Kyle Schwarber to keep this team somewhat competitive, right? Ranger's going to go. JT's going to go. Schwarber's going to go to free agency. We don't know how many of them are going to come back from free agency. And what I can't do is I can't have a team like the New York Yankees, a stadium where Schwarber would probably hit 60 home runs, a team where they could absolutely use it because they're on that fringe of contention. If they offer him ridiculous amounts of money based on what the Phillies can, I can't have them go into major, major debt for Kyle Schwarber, right? I can't. I want him on this team, but there are certain limitations based on what this team needs, right? You can't just – we saw it in 2010, 2011, and it led to the 12, 13, 14 next decade's worth of collapse. Thank you contracts, paying old guys, paying guys for what they have done and not what they're going to do. I'm not saying Kyle Schwarber's going to majorly fall off. Like, I want him on this team. I want the Phillies to pay him. I want him back. But I'm not going to sit here and say blindly pay him anything because he's not 27 anymore. All right? So that's just the thing with Kyle Schwarber, where I sit with that one. But it's a great – I don't want that to put a damper on him winning All-Star Game MVP. That was awesome to see last night. It's the only time in my lifetime I've ever seen that. It's funny. The Phillies have a couple of home run derby champions, but seeing him, Abreu, Howard, I think are the only two that I've seen. But the fact that it's only been one other guy in the history of the Philadelphia Phillies to win All-Star Game MVP, and Schwarber's doing it in a year where he's been really, really special for this team, that's awesome. Anyone who's worried about, oh, maybe it'll mess up his swing, because that's the thing with the home run derby. I wonder if it happens with the swing off, even though it's much smaller of a sample size. Swing looks just fine. So we'll see. Maybe this will give him like this little boost going into the second half. Maybe it won't matter at all. But fun things are fun. There you go. That's Connor Thomas original. Fun things are fun. Enjoy it. Kyle Schwarber wins All-Star Game MVP. The Phillies are represented well on the national stage. The only participating Philly is the most important participating player in the All-Star Game. Take that to the bank. And there's one other little thing that you should be very happy about if you're a Phillies fan. And I don't know if people noticed this, but I certainly did. In fact, it was one of my first thoughts after congrats Kyle Schwarber. So the setup for the swing off, the National League went second. So Kyle Schwarber batted after the second American League batter. He hits 3 home runs on 3 swings, right? Nuke, nuke, nuke. Like all pretty much no doubters. And then the National League leading by 1 home run gives way to Aranda of the Rays, who was the final American League hitter. And because he did not hit a single home run, the final National League hitter did not get a chance to swing. And that final National League hitter was that rat Pete Alonso. And Pete Alonso sitting there, not getting a chance to do probably what he's dreamed of his whole life. And I hate to say that about the individual. I don't want to be, crushed dreams, but he is a Met, and he is annoying. But to see Kyle Schwarber steal that moment that, Pete Alonso was sitting there saying, this is going to be me. I'm going to hit the winning home run in the swing off, the first ever swing off for the National League All-Star team. And then Schwarber just goes, bomb, bomb, bomb. Sorry, Pete. Hey, we win. And credit to Pete Alonso, credit to Kyle Schwarber. Like they were celebrating together after Schwarber did it. Like there's no hard feelings between the guys. But I just thought it was very funny that Schwarber's performance took away a chance for Alonso to have that performance. Anytime I could take a shot at the Mets, I'm going to take it. Can you blame me? It's a rivalry for a reason, folks. So that was an even better part of it because I would have hated to see Alonso hit like one home run and then he gets All-Star Game MVP. I'd be complaining about that on the podcast today. But credit to Kyle Schwarber. The Midsummer Classic was capped off by the Phillies' only participant being named the best of the best. And just like that, we're going to do a 2-day stretch where there will be no baseball until the Phillies are back in action on Friday. But it's a good time to evaluate kind of where this team is at the All-Star break. And now that we're totally in the break part of the All-Star break with no baseball today, Wednesday, tomorrow, Thursday, let's talk about where the team is. We'll talk about that next as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about game time first, though. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever before. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. The worst thing in the world is when you're trying to buy tickets and you're just endlessly scrolling. No, not a good deal. No, not good seats. Trying to find the best possible deal, best possible tickets. Well, Game Time's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. It'll give you the view from your seat before you buy, and the price you see is the price you pay with Game Time. No hidden fees. Best part, if plans change, which they always do, the Game Time guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and more. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. They also do baseball, basketball, football, hockey, sports, concerts, comedy, theater, all of that stuff. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed with our friends over at Game Time. So where are the Phillies at the All-Star break? Who is this team? I'll just give you a little bit of an idea as to what we're going to be doing in some other episodes this week. We are going to be going through individual first half grades for players. We're going to do position players in an episode. We're going to do pitchers in an episode. So split the roster right down the middle. We're going to run through that. We already did positional groups, the GM, the president of baseball operations, the manager. We did that at the first half mark, right? 81 games mark. I think we actually did it after 83 games because that was the series with the Astros where the Phillies were getting punked. But bottom line is this. I want to break that down a little more granularly because we don't have a game to react to and we have individual players to grade and figure out, are you going to be a part of this team in a couple of weeks when the trade deadline gets here? There could be drastic changes. There could be minimal changes. That's up to Dave Dombrowski. We will continue to keep you updated on what is going on with the rumor mill surrounding the Phillies and Dave Dombrowski. But as far as where this team is right now, overall, I would call them a very good baseball team. If there's an elite category, they're not there. And there may only be two teams in that elite category. The Dodgers are there regardless of record. The Dodgers could be like a 40-win team right now. I might still have to put them there just because of the talent of the roster. Like they're the exception to the rule. The "you are what your record says you are" moniker does not apply when you've got the best, 30 of the best 50 players in the sport on one team. It's crazy what the Dodgers have done. We talked about that before. But the Phillies, when you look at where they overall stand, they have the 7th best record in baseball, tied with the Toronto Blue Jays, but lower than them on tiebreaker because the Blue Jays hold the season series over the Phillies. Not that it matters. They're an American League team. It won't matter for playoff seeding unless both of those teams meet in the World Series. When you look at the National League, the Phillies have the 4th best record. Now, the Brewers are a game up on them. The Brewers been on a heater, and they're trying to track down the Cubs in the Central. The NL Central's got real interesting, but the Phillies are leading the Mets by a half game in the NL East. They're 55-41, 14 games over 500. I understand how we've gotten here has not been ideal. The bullpen has been the number one issue with this team. The offense has been inconsistent, though you do have some guys that have turned it on as of late. They're starting to show more signs of life. It's just about getting everybody kind of rolling together. The problem with that is once they start rolling together, I know what I'm going to hear. Well, they all started to get hot at the same time. What happens when they all get cold at the same time? And I'll continue to yell from the mountaintops. That's baseball. You deal with the chances that happens, but you build the roster as best you can. But anyway, that's for future podcasts, future Connor, future you. We'll have that conversation when we get to it. But they've started to get the offense rolling a little bit better. Largely over the first half, the offense has been inconsistent based on the expectation and the payroll. So I'm not giving the offense like an A+ grade or anything like that. Don't think I'm crazy. The bullpen is barely getting a living grade. God knows what we're actually going to grade them out when we look at the individuals. And the starting rotation has been the glue that's held this team together because they've been damn good. You can improve on the bullpen. You could potentially improve on the lineup at the deadline. So we'll see if they do enough. But overall, what this team is, like if I just Men in Black use the little flasher thing, whatever they call that, to wipe your brain, wipe your memory. And we went back to the start of the season. And I told you at the All-Star break, the Phillies are 14 games above 500. They have a half game lead in the division. Not that I told you who was over, because you might have guessed it was the Braves, who are falling apart. My goodness, they're 42-53, 11 games below 500. But I told you that about this Phillies team. And I told you that they haven't even called up Andrew Painter or Justin Crawford yet, right? 2 of their most MLB-ready top prospects who, hey, maybe they move them. Painter sounds like a no-go. We'll talk about that later on in the week or next week when we get closer to the trade deadline. But I tell you all this stuff, and you say, okay, we'll take that. I think a lot of fans would have taken that. Half-game lead in the division, 14 games over 500. You say that's a pretty darn good pre-All-Star break portion of the schedule. The problem is how they've gotten here has not felt like 14 games over 500, has not felt like half game in the division. Now, I have this theory, right? The way that I watch sports, and I will just tell you this right now, right? Like I am the type of guy where I say, if you're here with major issues, imagine how much better you're going to be when you get to the level that we expect you to play at. Right? Because your expectations, if you handle them right, going into a season, are based in reality. Here's what they should be. Here's what history tells me they will be. Here's what the back of the baseball card says these individual players are. Baseball has 162 games. We all know this. So you can go by the stats much more confidently than football, basketball, or hockey. In football, you have a bad week or two, your numbers are gone for the entire season, right? In basketball and hockey, you have a bad week, yeah, you could be in trouble. Bad 2 weeks, all of a sudden your scoring average drops a couple of points. In baseball, you could have a bad month and hit 320, right? Like it's crazy how long the season is. So the back of the baseball card is very valuable. And why I bring all that up is to say my expectations ahead of the season were this to be a very good baseball team, for them to play to about their watermark. Some guys will be better. Some guys will be worse. Largely that evens out. So if you have a good reality of who these players have been in their major league career and who they are right now in the moment, you would say this is a pretty darn good baseball team. I think from my evaluation, from a lot of people that I've talked to's evaluation around baseball, and they have not played like a really, really good, like an elite level baseball team. I think they've been very good, which is why they're 14-0 over 500 and leading their division. But do I think all of the guys and the team as a whole have played up to what the standard should be? My answer to that would probably be no. I think they can be and should be even better than what they've been. So if bad Phillies baseball is 14 games over 500 at the All-Star break, what is good Phillies baseball? Does that turn them into an elite team? And what is good Phillies baseball with reinforcements from the trade deadline? Like, this is the stuff you have to open up to the possibility of. I want you to understand something. Whether you believe they're going to do that or not, you're still going to be mad at this team if they don't get the job done in October. So don't think you're protecting yourself or getting it right by saying now this team has no shot, because you're still going to be angry and you're still going to be in my mentions and you're still going to be calling me on the radio and you're still going to be commenting on the YouTube when this team, if this team, I gotta catch myself there, if this team gets bounced early in October, right? Whether you tell me today they have no shot or not, you're still going to be ticked off when you see it end. Why not believe a little bit? Why not open your mind to the possibility that this baseball team, that I think the large majority of the fan base who are realistically evaluating this first half or the pre-All-Star break portion of the schedule would say has not played up to their standard? Why not open yourself to the possibility that they could play up to their standard? And how much better can that make them look if below their standard is 14 games over 500? That's my point. So who are the Phillies at the break? An underachieving baseball team based on what we expected them to be. And if underachieving is this, could you imagine what achieving is? Could you imagine what overachieving is? That's my only point. Is that enough for them to win the World Series? We'll find out in October. Is that enough for them to win the division? Absolutely, because underachieving has gotten them a lead at the All-Star break, right? Is it enough for them to be a top 2 seed in the National League? Possibly. We'll see what the Cubs do. Dodgers are damn good. And the Brewers are on a roll right now, so I don't know. Keep an eye out. But when we look at all of this, there's a lot more to get out of this Phillies team, even as the roster looks right now. And if they make the right improvements, add to that. This is still a damn good baseball team. So the numbers look solid. The eye test says they've underachieved. The future says they can be even better. That's what I look at. Some people worry, hey, aging roster, maybe the second half, that's where guys start to slow down who are a little bit older. I got you on that. We'll have to keep an eye. It's a valid concern. So as much as I tell you to be open to the possibility of them playing up to their water weight, like I'd say I've got to be open to the possibility of them being a team that's just too old to compete through 162. You never know. So I'll have my eyes open for that and be watching guys like Romuto, Harper, Castellanos, Turner, Schwarber. Schwarber less so because he's a DH. But those are the guys that I'll be watching in the second half of the season or post-All-Star break of the season to see, do they take dips? Do they look healthy? But for the time being, I'm going to allow myself to believe a little bit that this can still be a really damn good season and a damn good baseball team. So that's where I'm at the break, right? That's what they've been. I think that's a pretty candid look at underachieving, but the expectations were so high that underachieving has gotten them to a pretty good spot. Coming up next, speaking of proper expectations, we got to talk about Philly's first-round draft pick, Gage Wood. If you're not familiar with who Gage Wood is, I'll tell you coming up next where he comes from, why he's special, and why Phillies fans need to calm down. We'll talk about that as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Phillies. So the MLB draft is not the NHL draft, the NFL draft, the NBA draft, right? It's more akin to the NHL draft where you're drafting these 18 and 19-year-olds who are going to be in the minor league system for a handful of years. But baseball, maybe 4, 5 years before you even see these guys at the major league level, and then another 1 or 2 before they're impact players. That's why the MLB draft is one where you only really get excited if you have a rebuilding team and teams in contention. Like the Phillies, you don't normally see the fan base latch on to a pick in the early rounds. We're worried about if this team can win the World Series. Not some kid getting drafted out of high school that you've never seen play. But for the Phillies this year, they did not draft just some kid out of high school. They drafted a kid out of college, and a kid that a lot of you might know. So the Phillies had the 26th overall pick in the first round of the MLB amateur draft. And they used that to select right-handed pitcher Gage Wood out of the University of Arkansas. And if you're sitting there listening to this today or watching the podcast today, thank you first and foremost for checking us out. But you may be saying, Gage Wood, I feel like I know that name from somewhere. You damn well better if you're a baseball fan. He struck out 19 in a no-hitter in the College World Series this year. Yeah, that Gage Wood from Arkansas. Monster, walking off the mound. First thing he does, hand under the Arkansas script on his jersey saying, hey, it's about the team. Respect my university. Respect my team. Shout out the boys. Love Gage Wood, right? He's a fiery right-hander with great stuff, great fastball, maybe the best fastball in this draft. That's an awesome thing to be able to go out and get. And also, he is a college guy. The Phillies, when they've looked at pitchers in the first round, think about the more recent ones. Mick Abel, Andrew Painter, Griff McGarry, all prep pitchers out of high school that are going to take a little bit to develop. Gage Wood, a guy that you see coming out of the college ranks. So maybe a quicker path to the majors. And there is belief, before I go into any of this, there is belief that he could have a very quick path to the major leagues. Now, what is very quick? Because I saw immediately an outpouring of responses on social media when the Phillies selected Gage Wood. Can't wait to see this guy in the bullpen in October. Call him up now. Have him in here to face the Angels on Friday when the Phillies start their post-All-Star break section. Everybody take a damn deep breath, okay? I get it. Some of it's tongue-in-cheek. Some of it's serious. And if you're serious about Gage Wood being up with this team in 3 months, y'all got to take a chill pill, all right? Now, could it happen realistically? Yes. I'm not going to say there's a 0% chance that Gage Wood ends up on this Philadelphia Phillies team some point this year. Now, he's 21 years old. Young guy, right? I know college, it makes you feel older than drafting an 18-year-old out of high school, but he's still, he's not exactly, you didn't draft a 24-year-old. And it's like, why in the world is he still out there, but he's major league ready? He's also not Paul Skeens, okay? Before anyone's like, well, Skeens came up and he's not Paul Skeens. So he's a pretty darn good college pitcher with a great fastball that could move through the ranks quickly. But what you don't want to do is immediately put the pressure on this kid. He gets drafted. It's a whirlwind for him. He joins the Phillies. He's trying to figure out, where am I going first? What is it like to be a professional ball player? I just finished a complete collegiate season, right? We went to the College World Series. I threw a lot of innings this year. So my arm is probably feeling okay, but it's not like a fresh season for him. Like he hasn't thrown in 2 years and he's raring to get back out there. So you got to be careful with that. And also, to heap the expectations of helping a major league team in the bullpen in October in a World Series contending year, that's just unfair, man. Whether he's able to do it or not, you can't put that on the kid. You can't say, welcome to the organization. Most people take 3 to 4 years to find their way to the majors. You're going to be pitching in the bullpen in October. You went from throwing at Arkansas to throwing for the Phillies against, I don't know, the Dodgers and Shohei Ohtani in the postseason. No, slow your roll. Maybe it happens. That would be awesome. It would be a great story. And a lot of people will point to Orion Kerkering making it from high A ball to the NLCS in a single season. That's a rarity. If he's good enough, the Phillies have shown with the Orion Kerkering stuff that they'll be willing to do it. But that's a lot to bet on. And it's a lot to put on the kid. And you don't want to just, he's 21. He could be a big piece for this team going forward at some point in the future. You don't need to rush him up here for this year. If you're relying on a 21-year-old to throw out of the bullpen 3 months after getting drafted, Dave Dombrowski didn't do his job, right, at the deadline. So that's not a realistic expectation for Gage Wood. If he does come up, I'll be excited. But I'm not going to look at him as a piece for the Phillies this year. And I don't think you should either. And if it happens, well, that's just the cherry on top, right? That's a bonus for the Phillies. But they need to work on getting guys who are proven at the major league level in this bullpen rather than pulling some dude out of Arkansas and telling him, you're our guy, go get it in the 8th or 9th inning of a playoff game. I love the pick. I think he's a really nice arm. I think he'll fit well with this organization. I just don't think that people looking at this as a move for this year have too much sanity to their opinion on that. And I'm trying to save you from yourself sometime. Don't build up the expectation that he's going to be here. And anyone who criticizes Dave Dombrowski and says like, well, why didn't you call this kid up? Why did you draft him if he's not going to be? That's not what the draft is for in baseball. This is not football. This is not basketball. These guys just don't join the team. All right. So glad they got Gage Wood. Glad they also picked 8 pitchers in the first 9 rounds. Their first 8 picks were pitchers, showing you how focused they are on adding to probably the bullpen side of everything in this organization, which is a need for the Phillies, even in the future. But don't get too far ahead of yourself. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, we come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Next episode, we're going to talk about position players, and we're going to hand out grades to individuals, all position players currently on the team for their first half of the season or the pre-All-Star break part of the season. So we'll do that next, but please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out. And I will talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.